Right, Jamie Jackson,
Here.
Matthew Lane,
Here.
Paul Gill,
Here.
Amy Garbarini. Tom Amin,
Here.
Pat Coffey, here. Chris Clark. Bone. Gibson, here. John Hughes. Patsy Ward,
Here.
Melody Fowler.
Perfect timing.
Philip Perella,
Here.
Rodney White,
Here.
Will Montgomery.
Here.
All right, and here we have a forum.
Great, thank you.
Morning, Will.
All right, we'll go next to item number 3, which is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Can I get a second? Second. All right, any discussion? Any changes? All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next is public comment. The public comment period are for comments and questions from members of the public, which are welcome at this time. Staff will also read any comments submitted by the public prior to the meeting. Lita, do we have any comment? Yes. Yes, you do. Yes, we do. All right.
Okay, great.
Just scroll up to the top.
Then, yeah, I can read this.
Okay.
All right, this is submitted by Michael Meyer. Okay. Okay. All right, for Michael Meyer, no more funding for Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, DRPT, Virginia Railway Express, VRE, or FXB Go. Rail line transportation is a huge taxpayer drain for just a few that utilize it. DRPT ridership data must be verified by a third party to be valid. VRE doesn't need expansion for 8 cars. Still doesn't have half the pre-COVID ridership. VRE ridership data must be verified by a third party to be valid. FXB Go/Fred buses are a little used taxpayer funded charity transportation system that should be shut down. FXB Go/Fred ridership data must be verified by a third party to be valid.
All right.
That's it. Just one question. Who gave that comment?
That was Michael Meyer.
Okay. Okay.
And this was from the tip advertisement.
Okay.
Tip and then.
Thank you.
All right, are there any members of the public here today that want to speak? All right, thank you. I close the public comment period at this time. All right, so the consent agenda has 2 items. It has the minutes from the last TAC meeting and also endorsement of a resolution 2624, adoption of the updated CMAQ CR SCBG methodology. That is an action item for this group. So can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion to approve?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, the next item are the tip amendments and modifications. We can go through these one by one, or is somebody? Okay. All right, so I have a recommendation to, go ahead.
I just asked that one question. I don't recall like in the past having like this many of them. Basically once, and this is like the second month of this. Like, is this the new normal? Or what's causing there to be some?
John, do you wanna take a stab?
There's a little bit more of this being a bit more of a new normal of TAC taking into it. This is unusual in the amount of tip actions we have. Traditionally, we get about 25, 30 in the course of 3 years. We're now getting them at 10, 15 plus in a month. The other item is actually you have multiple amendments and modifications happening on current projects that it isn't until after the use that we're getting corrections in from some of our stakeholders. So it is, for example, like 2629 and 2630 is amendment to 2615 or modification for that. And so we're just keeping that very open and clear that it's not immediately concurrently, but the ultimate action will happen.
And
It has increased.
Yeah,
Yeah, that has increased.
Okay,
And DRPT and the state are, DRPT is the state. DRPT and the feds are being more stringent on dollar amounts and descriptions for these amendments. So if we're off by $5, we have to update the tip and put it in an amendment. So it's not just
Okay.
us being Fredericksburg Regional Transit. Literally them going in and saying, you need to make sure this matches.
yeah, and I wasn't saying I was against it, I was just trying to understand, because I know it's
Okay.
to advance these projects.
Sure, yeah, I definitely just wanted to provide some clarity because we hadn't seen before the amount of oversight
Okay.
by the state. And so ultimately, we may put in estimated amount for Fredericksburg Go of the project, let's say it's $300,000, and we have to come back when we have a final number. Once the contract is awarded with $301,000.12. All right, so we've got a recommendation to, or is that a motion to put all the tip and amendments and modifications together? So can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
All right, so we're approving items A through M. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Out of here early today.
Quick question to John.
yes.
John, do we have the little write-up on each one of them?
Yeah, each one.
Policy committee, because they will,
Attached in.
right, okay, thank you.
All right, next action item is I-95 crashes, highest crash rate segment, info staff analysis. Becky, your turn.
Okay, next slide, Lita. I want to thank VDOT, particularly Rob Weber, our district traffic engineer. So Ian Ollis for his help to interpret the data. So back in August, we had a presentation to the policy committee. You'll see in the next two slides, or three slides, the result of that. When we concluded with that presentation, the policy committee requested staff to investigate trends and cause of I-95 southbound between Warrenton Road and Plank Road, extend the analysis past the Spotsylvania interchange, and determine the safety impact of the new through lanes. Next slide. Crash rates are computed using number of crashes, traffic volume, and length of similar segments on a roadway, producing numbers typically in 200. And the most appropriate use is to determine the relative safety of roadway segment when compared to similar segments. Next slide. When we went to the policy committee in August 2024, it was with a question Mr. Ollis raised to staff about crash rates between Plank Road and up north to Dale City. The highest northbound crash rate segment is outside the Famco region as you go between Dumfries and Dale City. Next slide. The highest southbound segment was between Warrenton Road and Plank Road. The data we had available at the time for traffic volumes went through 2022. And the new through lanes were open to traffic November 1st, 2021. Next slide. When we look at, I want to credit Rob Weber for this. When we looked at publicly available data of crashes subsequent to the opening of the new through lanes, we had 3.5 years of crash data after the new through lanes were open. So we wanted to compare a similar time frame for before and after. So the next slide you'll see compared average crashes per year, for example, in this slide, 3.5 years before and after the new through lanes were open. So we can see that the average crashes per year have increased after the new through lanes. Next slide. When we look at crash severity, that same similar time span before and after, the crash severity have increased in as far as annual average crashes by severity type, all severity types except fatalities. Next slide. When we look at the percent of total crashes by collision type for that similar time period, 3.5 years before the crash lanes opened, these four most common collision types are rear end, side swipe same direction, fixed object, off-road, angle. You'll see before we had 34% rear end collisions. Next slide. After the new lanes were opened, rear-end collisions have increased as far as collision type to 51%, and the same similar for collision types experienced after the new through lanes. Next slide. When we look at rear-end collision types or after the new through lanes were open, and this is for the all publicly available data that started January 1st, 2017. So we see a trend on the graph and the trend line that rear-end collisions by month were dropping prior to the new through lanes. Next slide. After the new through lanes are open, the graph and trend line shows an increase in rear-end collisions by month. Next slide. We thought it was important to, as far as collision cause, to look at the crash descriptions and crash diagrams. And we had a smaller subset of data where we asked VDOT central office and with Rob Weber's approval to give us the detailed crash analysis for a smaller subset of crashes. This is due in part because the publicly available data puts the latitude and longitude of all the southbound crashes in the new through lanes. So we were able, with this more detailed information, to accurately locate whether the new through lanes or local lanes were involved, as well as, and we call this a crash description, where the police report credits it to the traffic backups. V3 was stopped in the left lane due to traffic. V2 was stopped in the left lane due to traffic, etc. So we identified these particular crashes as traffic due to traffic backup as identified on the police report. Next slide. We also looked at other crashes and considered crash rear-end collisions that involve 3 or more vehicles to be suspected due to traffic backups. And this is a pretty prime example. You can read it yourself that we as staff identified that as suspected due to traffic backups. Next slide. So we compared, and in the collision type, there are crashes that did say rear-end collision, but had only 2 vehicles involved. So we have compared before and after the new lanes for that study period. The in blue are the rear-end collisions per month due to police report and 3 or more vehicles involved. And then in orange, rear-end crashes per month with only 2. So both have gone up, and we get to see that a large percentage is due to traffic backup, clearly due to backup. Next slide. We looked at time of day, which is a really great indicator of when things are happening. I think everybody that is in the area can attest that the afternoon time is when this traffic backup occurs in this segment, and we get to see the times of day and the afternoon is the high incident rate of crashes. Next slide. We then went deeper into that detailed information where we had the traffic diagrams, and we find a clear time period between 3 and 7 on weekdays as the time typical or predicted trend for traffic backup. And we feel like this is an opportunity for signage and media campaigns to help warn motorists of this situation that is very predictable. Next slide. When we look at the traffic volume of through lanes versus local lanes and the combined lanes south of Plank Road 126, and in the case study report, you'll see the actual traffic. But we see that the new through lanes, which are in blue, and came on November 2021, have greatly reduced the traffic volume of the local lanes. You then see the green line, which is the combined lanes just south of Plank Road to 126, is nearing the 60,000 a day. Yes, Paul.
Hey, Becky, just a question with this. So My perception of 95 is the traffic has gone up. But this kind of tells a different story that's like kind of lower since the pandemic. Is that because the weekend traffic is way up? But this is looking at the average weekday, which is like Tuesday to Thursday.
Well, this is the average annual daily traffic, so it doesn't take into account, it's average annual.
Also, the one thing that it took me a while to understand this graph. There are two things going on at the same time, and it's hard to mentally separate them out. The one thing is that these are not all the same location, right? So south of Route 3, the traffic doesn't look like it's gone up. When you realize that there's a large volume of traffic getting off at Route 3, the actual comparing between Warrenton and Plank and between Plank and exit 126 is not the same thing. It's unfortunately confusing. You're not looking at one place. It's not like one spot, and at that spot the traffic remained the same. You're comparing two different spots with a bunch of traffic that gets off at Plank Road. So when that traffic gets off, it should actually be lower. The combined, the green line should actually be lower between Plank and 126 than it is earlier.
There are about 11,000 vehicles a day that dump at Plankton.
Yeah, so the traffic hasn't dropped.
So what locations is this data actually at?
So there are two sections, if you look there, between Warrenton and Plank, and between Plank and exit 126. Yeah, so you have to be careful about that.
You have to add.
Yes.
Yeah. Which will take to 8,000.
And traffic did drop due to COVID 2019.
So there's 80,000 there between the blue and the orange in 2023. Higher than any of those other lines. I think it's probably better for us to, in future, put them on two separate graphs. Yes.
Prior to.
There's a tape in the case study. And they're honest. We're applying for the local, we're going to Plank Road. And you have the new period. They just came on 2021. And then the combined lane between Plank and exit 126. So there's nothing actual table on.
Right, but it's takes a minute to kind of wrap your head around. Do you have the volumes get talked about?
I do.
Should I think?
I do the next one.
So if you just ignore that green line, because the green line is a different location. So just ignore the green line and only look at the orange and the blue. The orange and the blue combined used to only be the orange at sort of 70 some thousand. Whereas now both of them are 40. So that takes you over 80. So the traffic has gone up. It's just that the way this graph compounds the understanding is by putting in the green line at a different location, because between this combined and that one, 11,000 cars get off the highway.
Prior to it being a separate color, and that's only southbound traffic. Sure. Have a break, because I don't, you actually have a decrease. It's just, yeah,
and then in post, you have these two splits, and then even have one where it's combined, to add those two things together.
Great.
Show where volumes are, and then that's at the one location,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could look at something similar at different locations. So that
Like
way.
you say, take green off altogether.
I think, yes, we should take the green off this graph and put it on a separate graph, would be easier for people to understand.
Mhm.
So the traffic has definitely gone up southbound, until exit 130. South of exit 130, it hasn't gone up very much, but up to exit 130, it's gone up quite a bit.
Great. Good input. Thank you very much. All right, next slide. Can we look at the crashes per year from the three segments? Our crashes per year are on combined lanes, south of the merge area. Six of the new through lanes have reduced traffic.
So COVID reduced the crashes, but we're now higher than pre-COVID levels in terms of the numbers of crashes. South of, so what's happening is that the traffic's gone up southbound until exit 130, but the number of crashes has gone up higher between exit 130 and 126. So there's definitely a crash problem happening at exit 126 because you have the same or slightly less traffic, but more crashes.
Next slide. The crash rates of the local lanes. Finally, adding use the crash rate on the lane. The crash rate of combined lanes south of the merge. Crash rate 70 in 2020. The lower traffic volume 63,000 AADP, and the pre-COVID crash rate 65 with higher AADP 64,000.
And one extra comment, this is only data up until 2023. So this data is 18 months out of date already. So we believe the traffic volume has gone up further than this, but we don't yet have the certified data. So we can't start making claims about it yet officially. But based on observation, I think the traffic has gone up further than this.
In 2023, the traffic volume of the public domain. Next slide, please. This is the traffic volume that exits exit 120, exit 130. When comparing the ADT of I-95 southbound to 9 lanes south of the merge area, this is the difference in the traffic volume of the combined lanes versus the local and local plus. Again, you'll see that table in the report that shows that jump or that big drop in the actual number.
And the 2024 data is probably higher again.
A lot of people are exiting at exit. But kudos to the new local lanes. I think when we saw the traffic volume is almost a perfect split between the local and the new through lanes. It's saying, okay, man, I want to go. I want to go south. And then what's great is when you come eastbound on US 17, you want to go southbound I-95, can't get over to the local lane. What you've done is beauty. Those new local lanes, and the new through lanes and the local lanes are just humming a song down there. So great job with that project. Next slide.
Rupert? One thing to note about this is the exiting volume is actually even higher, because this is the net exits plus the entrance, southbound entrance.
Yes.
So that number is even higher.
Great.
I don't know what it is, but.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. Anyway, fantastic project. Next slide, please. Now, this is taking all publicly available crashes from January 1st 2017 to, April of 2025. It's actually available now in Power BI. And so this is a fractions by milepost, take into consideration, exit 130, Plank Road, that's the combined, fractions in both the local and the new road. So we see a, red coming down north of exit 130, but then we are hot red as we approach exit 126, a crash density standpoint. I want to thank Lita. So what we've concluded in this is we have two hot spots in the study area. The major concern being exit 126 and at Plank Road to a lesser degree. Also, I want to compliment that Route 4 project that really did a fantastic job. The existing bridge structures, it really runs smooth. I want to compliment you on that, and it flushes traffic off the interstate about as best as you can do. Next slide, please. So we want to again credit Rob Weber for giving me a great formula to find hotspots by quarter-mile milepost. So we see graph what we do prior exit 126 and the approach there too is hotspot. Next slide. In the new through lanes, I'm going to call it a hotspot. This is the quarter-mile milepost that has more crashes than the other segments. And as we approach the local lanes approach exit 130, again, it's sort of like the one we just saw. Crashes among that segment, not quite as much a peak that first slide we saw at exit 120.
But you are getting crashes in both the through lanes and the local lanes. So we're not sure what the through lane crashes are all about. It might be rubbernecking. People are looking at the crash in the other lane and then they cause a crash in the through lane as well. Don't know, but it's happening in both the through lanes and the local lanes.
Sure.
A lot of complicated data with, some places it's combined, some places it's separate, previously the fines or crimes. Something, that is something I was curious about.
We could also do them cumulatively, like have a different color, like pink, leave this blue, and then on top put the pink, and then you'll see the cumulative number of crashes at this area will be a little bit more significant than the separated. Yeah.
Yeah. So the approved too.
Right, it was just showing,
Yes. Yeah, and you're right, when you see this, when you see a, say stagnant, but a still picture, it's better to have that, just like we did with the, rear end flags.
between two different traffic pages.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, that'll be cool, not hard to do it all. Yeah. Like I say, without Rob, this would be. Really, thank you for.
I think we have a
Yeah.
question.
I'd also consider mapping as well. Just from my perspective, that'd be pretty easy. Seeing it next to each other. And then
Or
also-
granular density map by
Yeah.
quarter-mile milepost.
Yeah, especially because you can see on the quarter-mile post on the map, where you go, up the hill after the split, or you go back down the hill, back up the bridge and all that.
Yeah.
There's definitely some things in there with speeds that
Yeah.
probably mean there's a lot more crashes.
I agree. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
'cause speeding usually opens up by a wide margin right at that split.
Mhm. Great. And the last three slides are just suggestions and ideas that team came up with. And I think that concludes my presentation.
Just walk them through these key findings.
Okay.
Just because Because some of them are, I mean, we don't need details,
Yeah.
but just,
Yeah, two unexpected observations. We expected to see, projects at 126, the far left lane and center lane, if you go past that interchange, are zero crashes due to traffic slowed. So again, as a motorist, people are trying to get off 126, they're on the right lane. So there might be an opportunity. I don't know if that section of 995 restricts commercial trucks from getting over, but again, signage to through traffic motorists to warn them of the time of day. Also through traffic, use left lane. And all these crashes approaching 126 are clustered in the right lane or the right shoulder, where people are just trying to queue off.
I do have one thing, just from someone who drives that every day, it would be unexpected. Because that right lane is always not as much as the new project of 126. That right lane is always slow, and the other two lanes are moving at pace.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that kind of tells you what the problem is.
Yeah.
When the other lanes have got zero crashes over a many year period, and the one lane has got all the crashes in. And we've seen that now because we've been able to separate them into the lanes by doing the exact locations. So there's one lane that's dangerous for you if you're driving there, and that's the right lane.
One thing I would suggest is working with VDOT and whatever that date, I can't remember, the project of 126 opened up. Get that date, crash rate is available to the
Great.
one using British of congestion, but two, more people looking at crash data for that right-hand lane because it is significantly
Good.
only on Friday afternoons usually, or during a much smaller period of time. There is a slowdown.
It will be outside of this data period,
yeah.
because it's 2023 that our data ends.
Significant.
The driver that. So that, the benefit of that facility will be to improve because if single downstream, it's kind of what is shown. Going the hope is certainly that's so good conditions. There is the design project on its field. But it is looking also on. There's some things that I think would be helpful just so that anyone who understands that there are things that
It'll be done.
right, that are, in the works, that are moving forward, that is approaching this. Like southbound.
What would be really great is if we could get the 2024 data.
Well, I have the crashes, I have the crash data, it's not the traffic volume, but if you give me the date, of the opening of that southbound, they did put an additional lane in,
Yeah, two more.
So you've got crash data for 2024?
actually through 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crash rates, it won't be available for those dates yet,
No, the
but it'll be close.
the volume is the one that, back to 2020.
So you've
But
got,
I got crashes.
so
all
the
way up
crash
to-
data, okay, so we can see what the effect on the crashes is
Yes,
of opening those additions at exit 126.
Check.
2024 data.
yeah, I go to the VDOT traffic volume site, and then I got 23 information from as far as global.
You'll-
I was asked after the 24 data, and the answer I've got is it appears to be ready. We don't know why it's not.
I've got a comment.
Becky, a great presentation, and I have a couple questions. One is, has there been any analysis in the northbound direction to see if there are any issues there? The other question is with the crash severity, is there any analysis looking at that? I know like in Smart Scale, as Kathy said, this project is not scored well. One of the issues with that is it actually doesn't have that many fatal or serious crashes. And basically with smart scale, that's predominantly what the safety metric is based on. Have you had a chance to look at that?
Yes, the crash severity we have and fatalities are low. It's basically property damage.
People are going 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Fatalities are very low.
It's like one death a year. It's no more than that.
So I think on the bracket, probably that same idea of, for ODET, whatever that car is. They've got its two cars, like, it's really, there's something.
We did that all the way through.
Right.
But it was collision types and severities.
Exactly, yeah, and that way, we would understand the happening.
Yes.
Whether it's problematic or something else is causing.
You see it right on that. all that.
Yeah, there's some weird thing happening in the through lanes near exit, in the approach to exit 126, which shouldn't be there. There's no reason for there to be rear end crashes in the through lanes around exit 120, 130. 130.
Traffic. Yeah, right.
Okay, so it's maybe further south than the ones in the local
They
lane.
act up through the interchange from the merge.
From the
From the
merge
Downstream merge, yes.
in through lanes up through the
Yeah.
Route 3 past the bridge.
Yes.
Well, usually between Route 1 and Route 3, there's usually some open space and movement. But both of those merge points drop to almost zero.
Okay,
The merges are really something if you figure out a way to address those.
so the merge is getting the through lane crashes.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to over causality is slightly difficult to prove, but yes.
Whatever the cause. There should be calls. We have data to show on a regular basis and how far. The through lanes are.
Your
You might not get them off. So I tried to use Google averages. Google averages don't show that the backups aren't regular enough to show Google average. We'd like to get some.
one of the problems with the data, well, there are two problems with the data. The one is that the VDOT counters northbound are broken in 2023, not been replaced. So I'm on the new people that run the district to try and get us some new counters put in there. So we can't actually count the northbound lanes. Anybody who's giving you data on a northbound lanes only, the data's made up.
Well, there's only one counter location that's out. And I've been working with central office to see what it will take. They quoted me, what, 25,000, I think? Because I talked to the guy who runs the account program for central office, and their budget is accounted for this year. In terms of replacement and new counters around the Commonwealth. And so I said, well, if we can come up with some money, what it would cost? I'd have to look again and see what the number. It might be off by an order of magnitude.
It's been out since September 2023.
Yes.
So we can't, so the southbound ones are working and we can get that data, but the northbound ones are not working and we can't actually, you can tell like in Stafford what it is, and you can tell further down in Spotsylvania what it is, but you can't tell in the section where we're trying to focus.
Paul, did you have another comment?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Becky.
Thanks for that. And thanks to Becky for pursuing this at 6 months, because we had to find the data and it was restricted data and getting the data took, it was a whole long thing. So thank you for pursuing it and finally getting us the answer. And we can say that there are some hotspots of crashes and we'll try and refine those a little more as per the suggestions today. That's why we have a TAC. Thank you, guys.
Great discussion, everyone. Definitely appreciate it. All right, we have our next item. Lita, it is you again. Yeah.
All right. Next, let's refer to BPAT.
Yes,
Not in this presentation already. So they're presenting about complete streets, and this is something that we've prepped you all for in the first half of this calendar year. But here it is, commenced work. So starting off defining what are complete streets, and these are federally defined as standards and policies that ensure all users of the transportation system have access to safe and adequate travel. So in this second paragraph, there are some subgroups that are specified to be included in this all users definition that we should. So why are we doing this? The goal is to create a resource for the region that addresses our transportation network safety and accessibility needs. Additionally, this will support funding applications. We are proposing a network-wide approach that is better defined later in the presentation. But I did want to call your attention to this line here that the scope of this plan so far is focused on the urbanized area. So this is the first of two tools that we've kind of developed so far in this process. And it's an interactive map mapping crashes in the region. Oh, I'm not sure. There we go. Sorry, for our Zoom people. But so this is crash data from 2016 through the beginning of 2024 for crashes that involve cyclists and pedestrians in the region. And here you can see they are coded by crash severity, where the red is fatal and all the way down to purple being no or no apparent injury.
When I saw this, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. When I saw this the first time, that struck me as quite significant. We've killed 37 people on bikes and seriously injured 107. That's like a lot. I know it's over a longer period, but still, that's a lot of people who've died and been injured cycling on our roads.
So this is a tool that you all now have access to, and you can explore each of these crashes. But really, it was developed, and now this is straight from VDOT, pathways for crash data. But really identifies and defines that safety need in our region. That I talked about at the top of the presentation, why you should have a complete streets plan, or why we're doing this. Those my presentation.
Please do play with those maps and have a look at the crashes and then also the map that's coming.
Yes, that's the first of two tools. So, however, these are just some components of a complete streets plan that we kind of aspire to have. And the first of those is to develop typologies to establish regional guidelines. In addition to identifying corridors and network connections, establishing prioritization criteria guidelines, maintaining a list of regional multimodal projects, and identifying funding sources that, again, this plan can help support our regional applications. So more work we've done so far. First off, reading other complete streets plan to inform this work and see what might be appropriate for our region. In addition to creating this second tool, which is another interactive web map. However, this time, rather than mapping crashes, it's mapping the infrastructure in a region for the multimodal transportation network. So there's bike ped facilities here. There are also transit facilities here. And again, this is something you all can go to. And right now I have the FXB Go routes turned off, but you can turn those on. And a lot of these have, you can click on them and find more information. Like this is the VCR trail in Spotsylvania. For bus stops. It'll say whether there's a shelter or a bench there, etc. But just something to, again, play around with and also check for accuracy. Because it's something that is like pretty much a living document. You can continue to update it, and hopefully it'll be refined as this process goes on. However, input from locality staff was solicited in the development of this tool. And also you'll notice this big pink blob Like I mentioned earlier, that's just the scope of this. So this is the urbanized area, which we are building something into.
That's another cool map. We're gonna put them on the website. So that you can have access there, but you can really access them through the links.
Yeah. Do we need to
Contact, yes. Harry and my contact information is at the end of this presentation. You also know where to find us. We're working in this building mostly. But yeah, any feedback and edits are welcome at any time. I want this to be an accurate, up-to-date tool for the region. So this is just another slide talking about some additional map elements. Like I said, you can click on a lot of the elements and features for more information about them. And also in the preliminary work we've been doing so far, the right side of this is just kind of some additional data to help inform specifically, I guess, who those all users of our transportation system, who they are. So while we said safety is an issue that office plan to address, also access to the transportation network, access for all users to adequate travel, including those households that don't have access to a car or only have access to one. So right now, we're meeting with the TAC. And as I mentioned earlier, BPAC has already received this presentation. But our next steps moving forward are to hopefully take this to other regional stakeholder groups. Plan to take it to the Public Transportation Advisory Board and Fredericksburg Pathways Committee, and the Disability Resource Center for the region. And we'd like to really present to everyone who will hear about it and have a say. And also eventually take it to the general public for their input. And finally, it's just developing the plan elements I kind of identified earlier.
So leader, the thing that we need next is, once people have had the presentation, is to give us feedback on the existing conditions, maps, and data that we presented.
Yes.
Oh, is this another, sorry, I might jump in the gun.
Well, these are a lot of questions.
Excuse me.
And I understand that you all might not have answers right now in this moment, but like Ian was saying, we'll take, I think, feedback. And again, our contact information is here. On any of these questions, on any input you just have for the plan generally. But even right now, I'll just pause for immediate reactions or any initial questions or feedback so far before continuing on. Or
So yeah, my two comments were, first thing is, have we missed anything? Is there any bike path or bus stop or something we've left out of the existing conditions? Then the second thing we're going to need from the jurisdictions, if I'm correct, is the projects you have already in the pipeline. So you've got an already funded sidewalk, bike path, or a bus stop, or a shelter, or ones that are planned but are not yet funded. Those two kind of categories, we can then leader and Carrie can then put into what will be a plan. So this is what we have, then move to this is what we're planning, this is what we've got funded, this is what's coming through the pipeline. That would be like the next set of data that we'd like to collect from jurisdictions and state partners and transit agencies and so on.
you'll see back on this slide, acknowledging that, yeah, we need to evaluate and incorporate the existing plans, especially like on this question, water network gaps and deficiencies. I know a lot of you all do transportation work in the region and probably already got plans in the works addressing those network gaps and deficiencies that might exist right now, but are planned to be addressed. And if you worked with me on this earlier, I was asking about regional plans and do have some information on that. But again, working together to evaluate those and incorporate those. Yeah, Josh.
What if there's like something privately funded or implemented, like part of a project where condition that they put in a bus bench or something? They just let you guys know when that they install that?
So yeah, and that'll raise when they install it. Yeah, I know in Spotsylvania, I feel like Jacob's really good at identifying a lot of those privately funded like pieces of the network. Even like when it's in the pipeline coming down, it's like, oh, this section. Yeah.
Okay.
Let us know.
Yeah, the funding source doesn't matter, even if it's funded.
I guess it's being implemented by a private developer.
Right.
So it's like,
But is it gonna be for public use or private?
yeah, it's for public use, yeah. But we don't really have control of when it's gonna be done, you know. That's like
But if it's planned, if it's funded, it's still.
conditioned as part of a special use permit.
Right, so it's still part of the plan for funded. Once it's part of it's still part of it.
So part of the goal here is that we get these things done. We get the existing conditions done, then we get the planned infrastructure and so on into the plan. Because the final phase is, what would we like that we haven't got funded? And then we can have a section saying, this is our wish list, if you like, or our projects that we need to get funded. Like I know Paul and Jacob in Spotsylvania have had a piece of roadway that needed a sidewalk or a shared use path, and they've built it sections by adding those sections to another project or using a TAP application to fill in a gap. So the wish is obviously we finish the thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's it's already done, which Lida I think is, and working with Carrie, but Lida's done a great job of mapping everything we've got. So just check that it's correct. Next thing we want to map and incorporate in this plan is all those that are funded and planned. Then the final part will come back to everybody and go, well, what would you like that isn't funded and planned that really we could, because then you use this document.
Like
As-
as the developer go belly up and then never do the apartment project. and
Sure.
Put the bench. in.
And never.
You know.
Sure, but then the point is that the final thing is we then have a document which shows all of that. Existing, funded and planned, and then not funded. And then this document becomes the, hey, we need these projects and here's our plan. Please give us the funding, federal government or state government or whichever, so that we can finish these projects that need to be completed in order to make the region have some sort of a sensible network.
All right, Matt, then Paul.
Just to his point, I would add a third one that just says plans by private development, just in case they go belly up. So say
Okay.
if you do it planned, do it funded or not funded, it's just a separate.
That's a good point, Lida. Maybe we can use a different color on the map or, you know.
And then one other question, just kind of a general one. How will this / what is the end goal of this active transportation plan and the greenways be? Now, there's 3 bicycle pedestrian focused plan, obviously one of them more TP based, but what is the end goal here and how will all of that coexist in one document and what's the end?
The plan is. I think it covers all of diversity. And this is more of, so it's just the Vanco urbanized area. And this is looking at the whole area regionally, allowing us to identify 4. And much more. But, you know, it's very different.
And the funding sources are different for rural versus urban. So, well, there are funding sources that are currently in the Infrastructure and Jobs Act that applies to complete streets specifically, which is urban areas. The new funding, the new Surface Transportation Act, we don't know what's going to be in it, so we can't yet say.
Paul?
So will this effort go into the ORTP? Is this be like a form part of it?
We wanted it to be a standalone document, but yes, if you look in the LRTP now, we have appendices that are complete plans on their own, but they're actually part of the LRTP, like the active transportation plan. So yes, but we want it as a standalone document because the IIJA said you need to spend X amount of money on a complete streets plan, and you can apply for funding then bike ped and transit projects if you have a complete streets plan. So there's like we don't know what the new administration will do in the new Surface Transportation Act, but also some elections for certain congressmen might have happened where there's been a by-election, or what do you call by-elections in the US? By-elections?
Midterm.
No, not a midterm. If somebody dies or they resign their seat or whatever. special election. So, we'll see what happens in the Surface Transportation Act next year.
Regardless of that, this allows us to place where our scholarship goes. Allows us to have.
The other question was schedule for this, and just to kind of follow up on what Matthew said, just the end goal. And just to comment with that, like I know like the Richmond region has a couple of main trails, like the Capitol Trail, kind of, the Fall Line Trail. And they've really been able to get a lot of regional support for those. We don't seem to have that. It seems like we could have that. Like BCR Trail, I know there's like the East Coast Greenway, but we haven't really kind of done, I think, a good job of communicating that. And I'll say just with our board, they approach basically when bike ped comes up, it's just kind of like a random bike ped project, which, doesn't really go anywhere. It's hard to get support. So at the end of the day, will there be kind of a couple of bike ped corridors, right, where basically those are targeted just for kind of investment over some period of time?
Will be fantastic to do that.
Okay.
And we're hoping that you guys, we got to be careful of treading on your toes, but we're really trying to get everyone on the same page, which is why I've asked Leader and Carrie if we can go to PTAB, if we can go to the committee in Fredericksburg, come to Spotsylvania. We're trying to get people to start the process at this stage. Like, have we got all the things mapped correctly now? What are the things you have planned? And then the final question will be, what would you like to see? And we're hoping that can identify like four bike ped corridors through the region that we can all get behind and support as a team. But I think Leader and Carrie are a little irritated with me already because I've said, let's just do it slowly. We don't want to upset anybody's plans. So we're coming to you, but we would really love to do what you just said, Paul, is to get, these are the ones that all gather around as a region and get funded, get them, and name them, as you say, put up signage, the whole thing.
And what's your schedule for getting the input from the localities?
Leader and Carrie, it's up to you. So the next input is really the plans you have and the funded projects you have. Let's finish that, because that's the second phase. And then for the third phase, we'll come back to you with all of that and say, okay, now what's your wish list? What's your final?
We're working on all of it. That's ongoing.
Yeah.
We've already got some of that.
So if you can,
Sorry, we should not forget on this map, as we wanted to check the existing conditions first. But like I said, again, this is at least that map and that database is relatively easy to update. And eventually there will be a cutoff. It's like, okay, the plan's like going through, but I can pretty much go and change it anytime, and the link will stay the same too. You can go in and view the latest version each time.
so if there are any planned sidewalks, scheduled paths, bus stops, or bus shelters and furniture that's already committed, could you tell Leader about it like soon? Like,
It needs to clarify that. Okay.
Yeah, again, because when we were seeking locality input on existing conditions, we were also soliciting input
okay,
on what was planned. So right now, I think we're asking for input that our existing conditions are correct.
That's right.
And we'll come back to you all with the plans, out infrastructure mapped out as well, asking in that next round for feedback that is.
so you've got all of that stuff. You don't need anything from anybody on.
Wait, it's incorrect.
There, right now, all she wants input on, whether the conditions map is correct. That's what she.
Okay.
So the map that she's got here linked in your packet, you can go and look at that map and make sure that what she's got there is correct. Right. Okay, but one clarification on the bus stops, what you got there is also some planned stuff, right?
There is, yes, and so that's, this is information I got, I think at the beginning of this calendar year. Rachel at FXB Go,
And she can give you another update at the end of the year.
the end of this year.
Yeah, she'll have updated. Right. at the end of the year.
And that was from this, or I was asking specifically for the strategic plan too, so it isn't necessarily, and those reps don't line up really on, it's like, I guess, planned in the strategic plan.
plans change, so she'll get you updated.
Yes.
Because we got updates coming in December.
Okay, great.
But for everyone else, just existing on the ground.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more, and then we'll have Lita finish her presentation and then answer any questions. Go ahead.
So the complete streets includes adults with disabilities. Individuals with disabilities, that be one information about all.
Ooh,
Here.
like ADA ramps, do we want to include that in our database? And what was the other thing you said?
Casual pets.
Audible pets, oh, yes, so like crossing.
You can have that, if people have that information.
Rob, do you guys have that?
I don't know if we have it centralized, but I can ask.
It would certainly, would. That's certainly part of complete streets, for sure, because the street isn't complete if everybody can't use.
Anything that's been put under HSIP, we definitely have a record of. That's what a lot of our work has been.
Be great.
All right, any other items for Lita right now? All right, if you want to continue on your presentation and then.
Yes, okay, so this just gets into kind of a framework we're proposing for establishing regional guidelines. So I'm sure, especially at the TAC, you all are familiar with functional classification and how we classify different roadways. Here's an overview anyway. But the idea with street typologies, which I mentioned earlier in this presentation, that it's a way to classify streets for the multimodal network specifically. So this is something that I've seen in various complete streets plans, toolkits, or guidelines established in other areas. These images come from the Denver region and the city of Richmond. But the idea here is that, and we can flip back to that because I know there's a lot of visual information on this slide. But really, this is a way to have context-sensitive complete streets planning. So you want to do a plan. We want to do planning where not every street looks or should look the same. Our goal is for a cohesive network where all nodes are functional. So street typologies are a way to guide interventions where the same type of street throughout the region will be supplied the same facilities in a way that makes sense for the land use of that area and kind of the function of that street or the characteristics of that street. So just again, going to other regions to look at how they're doing this. An example from Maryland of classifying streets is that they use land use and street function. And then I don't go through these kind of quickly, but all things we can continue to discuss. And on the right here is just examples of typologies that were defined or identified in other regions. And so developing our own street typology, these are questions that we'd have to answer in that process to create that GK. So we can come back and talk about this, but just real quick, again, we're doing all the BAMPO committees this week. Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee will also be getting this presentation. BPAC already got one. We're going to take to the policy committee. And then regional stakeholders we'd like to present to the Pathways Committee, PTAB, which we're already planning to present to, and Disability Resource Center all this month on October 1st. We'd like to come to Spotsylvania. I've already asked Stafford if there's no formal committee.
Could you just ban your committee? There was an infrastructure committee. What happened to it?
We don't have committees anymore.
Dear God. Okay.
And then further public engagement with members of the public, without necessarily a formal group.
You might have to present at the board's work, what's it called, workshop?
Work session.
Work session.
They're all about data center.
You know this has been recorded, right?
Yeah.
But again, if there's anything more, any questions now, we'll take them. Our contact information is here, because we'll take it whenever you have it. But let us know, and thank you for the work you've done already. Transportation plan is moving in, and we'll continue to do.
Thanks to Lita, woohoo.
All right, thank you, Lita. Thank you, Carrie. Definitely appreciate it. And your glamour shots at the end.
Bicycling and walking.
Oh, just while John is getting ready, I sent Lida and Eugene to the US 1 bridge.
Yeah.
In the morning, and they stood and took photos of people biking, and we found a whole lot of interesting stuff. There are people biking in the traffic. There are people who are too scared to bike in the traffic, so they're cycling on the sidewalk of the bridge. There are all sorts of things happening. People need to get across on their bikes. This is on the Falmouth US 1 bridge. Right, no, the US 1 bridge right now. We went last Monday and they took photographs, and there are people cycling in the traffic. We've got photographic evidence. We're gonna blur the faces of the people who are cycling on the sidewalk because we don't want to get them in trouble. But they're cycling on the sidewalk, they're cycling on the roadway in the traffic. It's real, it's not imagined.
On that note, let's talk about travel demand, population employment review.
So, very quickly, last Thursday, Walden Cooper basically shadow dropped the most recent population estimates for 2025. They did this 2 years. The next line. It wasn't really in the direction that we were kind of expecting. We actually received a slight reduction across the region in their population estimates. So from what they estimated in 2023, it's gone down slightly. You're seeing roughly a 1% drop for the county jurisdictions, and then over a 6% drop for the city. Caroline County is the anomaly in this most recent projections of having a 2% increase, because for the most part, they have lowered everything down because it was just recently updated. And what they do is they like to just paste over whatever the previous projections are. I haven't looked at the whole statewide trend yet to see if a 1% drop is very conservative for the state, or if it is actually something more in line with state expectations or even worse. So impact here is that over the summer, we implemented the 2023 plus 10% projections for a travel demand model, because there was an unwritten rule that we had to comply with Walden Cooper and the 10% projections. And now with the most recent options, we are now outside of that 10% because it was lowered across the Van region. We haven't adjusted Caroline or King George for their final estimates, because we're generally fairly close, a little bit low for them now, but they've been kind of recipients of aggressive population increases from Vancouver, so we're less concerned with that. But for the most part, we're probably looking at that within the next 12 months. We'll have to adjust our transportation demand model again to incorporate being in compliance with the rule. If there's something that the jurisdictions disagree with, or the populations, we're going to have additional conversations and have jurisdictions provide that we can enter in that conversation with Walden Cooper. So
my understanding is that after we made the adjustments to our travel demand model data, we're good for 12 months because we needed to get smart scale studies done, and we can't keep changing the data in the middle of a pipeline study. Again, we've already changed it once in order to come in line. So I am not going to be asking for any changes until smart scale is finished. You can't go and mess with data halfway, then you've got to redo study assumptions, and it's just a mess. So we did come into compliance. We reduced our numbers as per the updated model column, right? Now they've just come out with the updated figures, which we thought were going to be a slight increase, but actually they're a decrease. So the trend line for Walden Cooper is actually to reduce the state, because if you look at their graphs from the last presentation they did with us, they're showing us still as being the fastest growing region right out to 2050. So if our figures projected for 2050 are lower, it's going to mean that the state as a total is going to have lower figures. When we created them, they said something like the birth rate is slowing down in the state of Virginia, and the jobs are not growing at an alarming rate. So they project that the population is not going to grow as fast for the state of Virginia. in our case, our growth rate is still faster than any other region. But all the other regions presumably therefore are also growing at a slower rate. Question is, what do we do next year when the 12-month moratorium runs out and we then have to face the issue of our data having been reduced again by the World Computer Center? And do we start to fight it, or do we accept their even lower data, or what do we do? And the World Computer Center people said to us that if we can show data trends that they don't have currently in their model, they are prepared to write a letter to VDOT and OIP to say that they believe that their figures are quite conservative and that there is other data that shows much higher than their assumptions. But we have to come up with representations to what data leads us to that future.
Very much.
I do have just one comment. I know this goes against the grain of what's being discussed, but take Stafford, for instance, we're at 167,000 in 2025, like that, Sean. Wellington says by 2050, we'll be at 240,000. That's about 25 years from now. That would mean that as the 2.5 people per household, this number, we would need about 1,000 units, a little more than 1,000 units built, which is not currently happening, has not been happening in the past so much. So to me, I know we have probably 5,000 to 10,000 units already approved by right, but we're not building at a rate that will match that 200. Throwing that out there, I know trends can change, they may or may not change, down, they go up, but just for the
So-
group, I am more in agreement with these numbers in the past.
Okay. The comments that we've been hearing from folks is that because of costs of land and cost of housing, some of the population growth that would have gone to Stafford is now going to other places like Caroline County, maybe less expensive parts of Spotsylvania County, and maybe King George County. So in other words, the region as a whole is still growing, but it might not be in Stafford because land is getting pricey in Stafford, housing is getting pricey in Stafford.
Depending on other factors, you can actually have a jurisdiction that has a completely flat housing market where they're not building and you can still add 25% growth within it. It depends on the housing stock, the size amount.
Yeah.
The rate of occupation.
I just, even with all of that, 240 seems pretty close based on current trends for the past, current trends and for the past. So there's only been a few years where we built over 1,000.
But you've been growing at a pretty healthy 3 to 4% click every single year. Like it's Stafford's the most consistent of the.
It's been slowing down.
All right, Paul.
So I had a question just about the 2030 and the 2040. I know when Weldon came here last month. Basically there was a comparison of basically Spotsylvania like in 2025 versus 2030 past, and we were pretty much already there. We have a situation where we have that 12,000 units that have been approved, not built. And just southern part of the county, like the 17 corridor, that one corridor just exploding. So I guess we've been concerned with the number continuing to go down. I guess maybe the rate of growth will slow in the future, but right now in the short term, we don't see that. So we have some concerns with this.
Do you, I mean, the question, we don't have to answer it today, but the question that we would have is if we want to contest their figures for, say, Spotsylvania County, would the county have data that they can put together to make a case? Because we'd have to make a case to Weldon Cooper, and then Weldon Cooper will support that by sending a letter to OIP saying, and they've done it before. I can't remember which region they did, but they did it before where they wrote a letter to say, actually, we agree our figures could be too conservative, and they sent that to OIP. Well, but somebody has to produce data that shows a trend.
So if you can find out what's needed for that, I think we could put something together.
Yeah, because I think their 2030 projections are putting Spotsylvania at 160,000 and y'all are at what, 154, 155,000 already. That is 2024, not been it. So yeah, that we can dig into that. Yeah, it was interesting to see the numbers kind of go down as a whole and Caroline County being the one anomaly and actually a 2% increase for Caroline, which already had a fairly aggressive growth projection. That was shocking. I mean, not necessarily shocking, but you know, that was unusual to see combined with everybody else going that.
All right.
Do we have is there any history on their accuracy?
Because they like to overwrite their data. It's harder. They tend to be more conservative as a trend line compared to some other projections. What they're trying to do is try to develop a methodology for the whole state. And if you're looking at the core amount of growth for everybody in between, they tend to be actually fairly accurate. The problem happens on the outlier jurisdictions. Those areas that are having, say, population decline, state population decline, like the far kind of Southwest Virginia, and those with high growth, us, tend to fall outside that accuracy a little bit more than, say, their projections for, say, Hampton Roads.
And their data, they overwrite it on the internet. So you have to go dig to find the older data to make those comparisons. John did it, and their trends have changed. 10 years ago, they were projecting higher growth. I'm using that as a random number. It's not exactly 10 years ago, but sort of a decade ago, they were projecting higher numbers than they are projecting now. They've like cooled off. Yeah, most of their revisions have been in a downward direction for the future projections, right? So the 2050 projections have been reducing for some time now compared to what they were predicting a decade ago.
Maybe just might make some sense to get an archive of what they do and data, and you have a track record of your numbers if they are. Just force it out of money. Some sense to keep that if you're going to, particularly if you want to get in a position of disputing anything, if you are able to track their numbers, and you can show just maybe that inaccurate on the outliers or whatever the case may be.
You can at least point back. I think we've done it as early as the early 2000s, where we definitely beat the projections for 2020. So, I mean, we were significantly above that by more than 10%. But again, it's also kind of like what was happening between, in early 2000s and 2020, different growth patterns that might be happening from 2020 to 2050. So it's a little bit because they like to, every 2 years, they update whatever that out year is. They have some interim years, 2030, 2040. And so that's the reason why we're kind of watching the projections for 2030. How close are we getting at that in the interim versus the out years? The problem is that we have to keep, our model is compliant with Weldon, VDOT's kind of 10% rule with Weldon Creek for 2030. And up until 2040, with the exception of Spotsylvania County, that's where the first diversion happens. And then for 2050, everybody kind of moves out because we kind of kept a more linear growth pattern going out. They are having us kind of actually the whole state kind of just kind of flat line, kind of the end of the bell curve, which that's a big enough debate over what's going to happen 15 to 25 years out. That's a reason.
All right, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Final comment from me is that if any jurisdiction wishes to contest those new numbers from Weldon Cooper, you will need to provide some data. We will need to make a case. So if Fredericksburg wants to do that, let us know. Stafford, it sounds like you don't.
Not necessarily.
But well, you let us know if you want to, and Spotsylvania will, sounds like you do want to, and we'll work with you to get some data, what the data is and what the case is that we're going to make. That's all.
Thank you. All right, next item, Carrie, it's you, and I think you left.
Terry, Dove,
Christian.
My favorite subject. Canva Regional Smart Scale Update. Timeline and expectations, mostly for you. To keep you updated. I do some things. Next slide. All right, so regional expectations. You've already been reminded about this, but I'm gonna remind you again. What is due now? We've been talking to you on email about what we'd like to have. Locations and studies for round 7 for your local and potential regional projects. We want to know what you're thinking about for round 7. Are you resubmitting a previous application from round previous to round 7? Are you doing applications from older pipeline studies on the current round? Or are you thinking of new projects? Also, what assistance you will request from VDOT? That's coming up in a few days. First of all, VDOT has stated that they have a limited ability to assist time, so the earlier the need is known, the better off. And also, we're having you submit your project concepts to us no later than November. So on this first slide, you guys, any questions? We've got some locations for some folks.
So with regards just to that last point, submit project concepts, info VDOT no later than November, what does that mean?
So that is just basically name, brief idea, not your.
I mean, are you asking for like a detailed engineering cost estimate by that point, or?
I just said.
Okay.
Certainly.
I want to jump in and say that the last round we had production dates. So that's a whole new thing, and then really whether you're assisting with the application or not, the more that you can listen to loop and call back coordination, let us know your thoughts. It will help because if pre-app goes in and it's something that we haven't seen, and then we find there is some issue or an overlap, this is what we do. So, it's all the things. Or,
So the item due on September 12th, that's just starting that.
So that the teacher help with this intersection for some. So all this got consultants, but we're not developing that application. So you have the same things. So if there is something that they would want us to do versus the consultant. Yeah. That way. But time is gonna go by really quickly. They're trying to say, so we do just. So. A lot of things, whether or not you're actually to that we're not doing. That's why we want to know our help on something. And that doesn't need to be. We want to have this type of intersection group, this location for playing. But we need to, this is. Several different.
But not all jurisdictions.
And cats. I just want to make sure that it's understood that we don't need our assistant, have to talk to us. Part of that process, where it goes in for free apps.
In November is that's Paul, maybe I just heard so just the idea is just
So a lot.
It's full back.
The pipeline. Okay, so it's more than ideas by then. So the pipeline projects will already have. It doesn't have to be like fine. All of them. But it,
So there's a little misunderstanding here. Let me just clarify something. For the pipeline projects, VDOT with their consultant is already helping. So you don't need to say, hey, we need your help on a pipeline project. If it is currently in a pipeline study, put that one side. Projects that are not in a pipeline study or a STAR study that you intend submitting for this round of smart scale, you need to look at those and decide if you can do it yourself with your consultant or if you're going to need VDOT's help. And if you're going to need VDOT's help for those, they're not in a pipeline study, they're not in a STAR study, but you do want to submit them. Those are the ones you need to tell VDOT by the September the 12th. Hey, we're going to have a project on US 1 and we're going to need your help. That's about all you need right now. And then between now and November, you will work out, well, what is it on US 1 that you're going to actually do? Is it an intersection? Is it but VDOT wants to know how many projects they're going to have to assist on, and they need to work out a plan to be able to do that. They just want, do you need help on one project and on which roadway or none, right? They need that information quite soon because people come with projects very late and those projects are unworkable because there's some very complicated rule of smart scale that prevents that project. Like the city's project last time is one of those which is complicated. That VDOT found out too late that the elements of the project were changed by the applicant, and then it became problematic to get it done because there wasn't a consultant available and all that sort of. So to avoid that, VDOT is saying, hey, tell us that you're going to do this, then we can work with you on a plan to get it done. But if you don't tell us when you come with your project in like December, it may be too late to get it done.
Yeah, so stars started really early,
Long ago.
like, last October.
right, so we're all here to, we're within 6 months. So if there is a project that someone has an idea about today, that maybe meet that same level of study or something else, that's, you know, more things.
But if you, but if there's a project that has been in a previous study or that you've done a lot of work on already, so there's a lot of stuff done, but there's this little missing piece, VDOT can then fill in the missing piece and help you with that. But what they don't want is a brand new idea in November because that's going to be too late.
So what's more viable at this point is something you might, or that needs some working this round. Yeah, the November deadline is for everything, pipeline projects, as well as things that VDOT will hopefully have.
All right, Karen, I'll let you continue on. You can continue on and then you can ask questions at the end. Sure.
Okay. So to continue, so in that vein, we'd like you to communicate all of your local and regional candidate projects for Smart Scale so that we can take a look at all of them to be considered regional list. So all the projects will be considered for the regional list under the forthcoming criteria that we're going to talk about at the TAC subcommittee 30th. HPP eligibility, here, we've been talking about this at a meeting that we had recently. There's a line here that was highlighted, because I messed it up so we couldn't see the text. This line, I see we talked about this meeting.
It says an application is eligible for HPP if the proposed improvements are identified as preferred alternative to one of the belonging studies. So it was like alternative, and we thought maybe that meant that even if it wasn't on a corridor of statewide significance or a regional network, that could qualify.
Yes, as long as
But,
it can't just be a safety need.
well, yes, it says.
That's,
What about the bottom here, which says it has to be regionally significant? Next slide. Which says it has to be something that would normally be included in the modeling.
yeah, but if it's not in the MPO, then it's not going to be a part of that. If it's a part of the.
Yeah, so that won't work for Caroline and King George.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that wouldn't count then for any of our like locations that are on, like in Saluda or Northern Neck. Can't do anything.
That would really just be widening projects.
Right.
No timeline projects or anything.
So it's like,
So
That is another about thing that we can,
double check.
yes, that questions, and it's not, 2 days before the application.
so to go back to the previous one. Just to clarify, all of your projects, whether they're just gonna be local projects or regional. This is for, so for all overall, so we can find the strongest project for the. All right, so study time, pipeline studies have wrapped up phase 1. They're on track to deliver the preferred alternatives, as I said, in November. Big thing here is to manage your consultants, because the cost estimate validation is required on all projects for 15 million, and we know that's probably most, not all of them. So we had been talking early on about a June 15th target for the final cost estimates. And they're not going to deliver that unless we remind them constantly. So we just need to communicate that need to them consistently, especially for those larger projects. To avoid last 11th hour scramble. Consultant documents.
Please.
We receive those documents like an hour or 2 before the deadline. We're not going to be there again.
We can't be there again. So please, all of you, most of you sit on these studies. So please, when you're on the study with us, let's keep on reminding that by June 15, we need cost estimates from the consultants. Same with your projects you're working on as a jurisdiction that are not in the pipeline study. Same thing. We need those cost estimates because almost all of our regionally significant projects that are going to end up on the FAMPO or the WRC list are going to be over 15 million, almost all of them. But that means you have to get VDOT central office to validate the cost estimate, and that takes time. And we need that to be done early so that you can calculate your local match portion that you want to put on the project. And all of that takes time. So please do get those cost estimates in early. And help us get the consultants to give us the cost estimates early. If they start saying, oh, the timeline is slipping, and then we have to rectify quick.
So on pipeline study, it's talking about July and whatever.
There's no July.
We've got to talk.
There's no, I don't want any document to arrive in July. No documents arrive in July. You won't have time to review it. What if they've made an error and you've got to go back and tell them to do it again? July? No.
Do you have a question?
I was just gonna add, I sent you this morning the project concepts for the 7. Things will definitely change, but that's. So you'll see basically the same thing with some changes.
Over cheaper.
Yeah, I had this project.
His board hasn't spoken yet, but he's got good work done.
We talked to our board in February. Here's the plan. They said, okay. That's about it. But
We'll take okay. All right, next slide.
So next up, we have a tax bill subcommittee meeting September 30th.
one thing about that, we don't know who's on the subcommittee yet. We will talk about lots of exciting things like the draft criteria for the regional list, our regional strategy for success for round 7. We're going to analyze the V-Trans needs and their current study locations. That's one of the reasons we need to know the current study locations. And we'll talk about the potential we have for pre-scoring our candidates.
Chair, just to make this go quickly, can I just propose that we have representatives from each of the local jurisdictions at that workshop, and VDOT, because without the jurisdictions and VDOT, we're going to get nowhere. So please, can each jurisdiction appoint people to that plus VDOT, and then for all of the other stakeholders, we welcome you attending. So if you could tell us if you'd like to come, we'll put you on the attendee list. For example, for the transit operators, we don't have to have all of you there, but we'd like some of you there. So it's up to you to say if you're going to attend. But typically, we don't have transit projects end up on the regional list for FAMPO and GWRC because you have other slots, don't you, as a transit agency? So we don't have to have you there. We do have to have our jurisdictions there, and we do have to have VDOT there. And then with everybody else, it's you tell us if you want to come.
Do you want us to email you or to show up?
Email me.
Okay, so please let Carrie know by Monday of next week.
Who's coming from your jurisdiction, and
unless you know now. If you already know now, then just say you're
If
coming.
you would like to email Becky.
yes,
Set up a meeting with everybody.
Becky
Players.
just set up a. So
Okay.
If you have,
please tell Becky who your people are. So
they've all accepted this.
okay,
Oh,
good.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then again, by 12, if your assistance needs to be done, then send us your studies location, just your location.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Carrie.
All right. Correspondence.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Yep.
So with the study locations, even you just want, I'll give the example like Route 28 pipeline study. That's what you're looking at, like pipeline study, right? Okay. Great,
And that's like that's what you submitted last year.
right,
Doing reworks of this.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a good example.
okay, great.
Okay, I'm just bringing this to your attention. This is the official VAMPO letter about smart scale, and it's perhaps not worded the way I would word it. It's very kind of polite, and I would have been less polite, but anyway, it wasn't my letter. We did get a couple of things included in there, like for example, that they mustn't tell. Where is it? Scroll down. Anyway, there's a comment in there about the problem that we have with cost estimates coming back from central office late, and then you can't adjust your local match. You made that point, made some other points. VAMPO is really concerned that a meeting was held to workshop smart scale stuff without MPOs. PDCs were there, and other statewide groups were invited to the workshop, but not MPOs. And the concern is that MPOs have to make this work. We have to get projects in that meet the criteria, but we weren't invited to the workshop that discussed the criteria. So VAMPO is very unhappy about that, and they have sent a letter to the secretary to point that out and smart scale, and they would like to be consulted. So that's the letter, just updating you on what has happened. The letter's already gone to the secretary. I don't know whether a reply has been received yet. I have a meeting with them soon.
All right. Next item, staff reports.
On.
Okay, with this TAC meeting, the CMAC and STBG call for projects is now open. If you go to our website, We have two application forms for y'all. One that is a single application form. It's kind of the one that you've seen previously. It allows you to type everything in, and one project. Then I have a combined form, which now allows you to submit up to 10 projects all into one form. These are fillable PDFs, and if you email me for a Word file, let me know, but I have PDFs available. So call for projects is open. It's still dependent on the updated methodology to be approved in 1 week, but otherwise, submit PDF or production. Call for projects is now open for fiscal years 31 and 32.
Great. Paul?
So when's the deadline?
Oh, you're gonna test me. What is it?
For transit agencies, it's November the 15th, and for localities, it's December the 15th.
Pending the approval of the new methodology.
Yes, if
It'll be the old date.
if the new methodology gets approved by the policy committee.
All right. We've got input needed on Virginia FY 25 bicycle facilities trending report.
Yeah, Becky sent an email out to all the localities anyway, asking, update. Or originally, David Cook had reached out to us as the MPO, asking for updates on the bicycle facilities in the region that have been added in 2025. I went through their state database and added to the spreadsheet facilities that haven't been mapped or that aren't included in the state database, and we sent that out to you all because there's just some missing details, and maybe I missed some facilities as well.
Scroll down. There's a faster for this information, go all the way down, on your spreadsheet. There you go, there you go. So we've sent you this in Excel, we just need you to, these were added by Lita over here from your input with Big Streets Plan, and we need you to fill out the columns, if you would, please. Project manager, that kind of thing. So if you could knock that out, that'd be great.
Coming urgent though, when do we need to have this?
Friday is the deadline. David needs it a week from today, but we've given folks till this Friday to give it to us.
Please, can you all fill this in by Friday and get it back to us? Trails, spots.
Yeah, and some of these, I don't think were added in 2025, but here earlier, like this one wasn't in the database, but it was in the region in 2022. I might have missed other facilities, so again, if there's something missing from this list,
I will. All right, the additional bike and pet counters.
Yeah, so policy committee members, I think, if I recall from Spotsylvania, asked us to find out what the cost would be